Good evening. Thank you for attending tonight, the Lower Paxton Township Authority Board meeting. First item of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Judd.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Judd. Next item will be the approval of minutes, the minutes from September 26, 2019. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Correction.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I'll
Chrisman.
move we approve the minutes of February the 26th, 2019 as prepared and circulated.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisman. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Eby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, next item of business is public comment, and public comment will be anything that is not on the agenda for discussion this evening. Is there any public that would wish to speak? Mr. Kessler.
Has to do with the storm or the.
You'll have to go up to the mic, Mr.
Can I speak now or should I wait?
He's trying to see if it's on the agenda or not.
Go ahead, you can speak now. That's fine. Mr. Kessler, how you been?
Good.
Good.
Eric Kessler, Continental Drive, no, I moved yesterday, I'm sorry. Burning Pump Lane, Harrisburg.
Michael. Thank you.
Can you hand it? Eric Kessler, Linglestown. My question or my issue I want to speak on, if I could have maybe 10 minutes, I'd appreciate it. I recognize the need for the stormwater fee. I did a little research and understandably it was only done 2 hours ago, so I did it very quickly. But here's my questions. About 90%, I think was the number, of the properties in Lower Paxton Township are single-family homes that are flat fee. I agree. And nationally, I've seen overwhelmingly that's the way it looks like municipalities have handled it and are moving to handle it. It's the other 8 or 10% that I question. As you know, I'm a developer. I develop both residential and commercial property. Commercial properties, and my issue is not residential right now, it's commercial. Typically with a commercial tenant, when you get a stormwater fee, it comes through on the sewer bill, and it's a pass-through as a landlord. So it doesn't really affect me or an owner, but it affects, obviously, the tenants. I am concerned. I'm getting a little pushback, a little negative feedback from tenants that are concerned about their rent. Rent being part of, CAM being part of it, which is all part of the calculations. And I am concerned about that. Couple clarifications, if I may ask. Last meeting when I was here, I specifically asked in the calculation of impervious coverage. We know paving is impervious, concrete buildings. I asked about stoned parking areas, and I was told no, that would not be part of the stormwater bill. I found out now it is. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. But pervious paving would not be part of the stormwater fee. Am I correct? Pervious pavement.
The billing is based off of the impervious surface, and the impervious surface definition comes from the stormwater ordinance, and the stormwater ordinance definition was used in our billing resolution. So the impervious surface does include gravel and paving.
But pervious asphalt.
You're talking about the stormwater ordinance that allows pervious
Yeah.
products.
Yeah, that would not have a fee attached to it, correct?
Not, Tim can better answer that.
Yeah, a pervious paving, my understanding is that portion would not be included.
Okay, I have tenants asking, that's why I'm going over. Now, my other question, and this is important, I have a project, and I'll use these numbers, but this or relates to every single commercial project township-wide. When a new project is done, and I'll use my most recent project, it's about 9 acres of developed property. I spent or will spend about $400,000 on stormwater management items such as detention ponds, inlets, BMPs, rain gardens, and I can go on and on. Here's my question. Shouldn't there also be a credit, a stormwater fee credit offered back? Now, I did a little research, and many municipalities are offering credits. Matter of fact, Mount Lebanon, for example, has a 10-page stormwater fee credit manual. Now, I don't think you need to be that detailed, but if you take a property that was built 40 years ago that has virtually no stormwater management assistance, no BMPs, no rain gardens, nothing, why should they pay the same fee as a newer project that has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to provide water control and clean water? If that project didn't do it, you would have to, or, it would come out of the fee. Now, I don't expect an answer tonight, but I really would ask you to look at providing fees, credits, I should say. That's one item, because let's face it, you're not here, I understand, to generate tax income for the sake of generating tax income. I know you're also operating on mandates. I understand that. So I think everybody is caught between a rock and a hard place. My issue is I want you also to be very aware that there are businesses in this township that are struggling, and now we're adding a lot of fees. They have to be added. But when the owner of a property goes above and beyond and spends hundreds of thousands of dollars to do things the right way so it has zero impact on the area, there should be a credit given. That person should not have to pay a full boat. So that's one item. And then my second item, and then I'll go home, has to do with farms. Now, recently I attended with LACA at the firehouse. There was a Meet the Candidates evening, and all 3 county commissioners were there. And they made a point of saying that they are agricultural friendly. And I think that's one of those catchy words. Everybody says we're transparent. Well, we're not so agricultural friendly. Let me give you an idea. The USDA Ag Census in 2017, and I just pulled these for this meeting about an hour or two ago. The 2017 Ag Census says the average farmer nets $43,053 a year nets. If you take the average farm, and I'll use a farm that I own, my stormwater management fee will be $4,500. That's 10% of your farmer's average net income. You're going to bankrupt any farmers that's left in this township. It's a fact. Now, here's my suggestion. Again, there is a township actually here in Wilkes-Barre, PA. I was just pulling these off as I came here. They offer, I call it a farm credit. They offer credit for this is quote, low impact parcels containing sizable portions of undeveloped land, and then they will waive the application fees for the credit and the appeal. I'm asking you, there's not many farms or large parcels remaining in this township. I own a few, but there are developers, and I'm retiring. I'm done developing, so I'm telling you the way it is. I'm trying to keep my farms as farms. But not a week goes by that I don't get a call from developers, as every other large landowner does. You know, would you sell out so I can put 300, 400 homes? You're making it so hard to hold on. I'm asking you if you would also look, like other municipalities have, and providing a farm credit. Now, let me tell you, give me an example. I have about 93 acres, I think it is. I spend a lot of money every year doing, let's call it stormwater management work. If there's a washout, trees go down, we have to regrade things. These are all things as a farm owner I expect to do. But when I spend a lot of money and do these things, and then I get taxed full boat on top of it, I basically say to hell with it. Let the township take my stormwater fee money and you fix it. I'm just sharing with you my thoughts. The point is, I would like you to be able to come up with a formula, whether it's 10 acres, 20 acres or greater, some way to classify something as a farm and then offer 50% credit on the ERU count. Some mechanism, because the amount of fee wipes out my net income. And I'm talking mine because that's what I know for a fact. I have other portions of income, but I've had other people who own farmland that have chatted with me at the coffee shop and so forth. And it's a very serious problem. Now, farms can, if it's tilled, for example, can add to the runoff. But if your engineer notices it's a problem and you notify the farmers will resolve the problems themselves on their nickel, unlike a lot of properties where you have to get involved. I think you need to look at being able to apply a significant credit to maintain farmland in this township.
Mr. Kessler, appreciate your comments, and we will take those comments under advisement and review those.
That's all I can ask. I'd very much
And be back to you with the response, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yep, appreciate it. Is there any other further comment? Yes, sir.
Martin Schofstall, 5790 Devonshire Road. And I own Springgate and a whole bunch of undeveloped agricultural land in the township. So, am I allowed to ask questions or only make statements?
You can ask questions if you want to, Mr. Shostall.
Okay. So, in the creation of the structure for the fees for agriculture, was the Lower Paxton Agricultural Committee, did you discuss that with them?
I'm not aware that we have an agricultural committee at the township. Maybe one of the supervisors may know that.
You said community?
No, he said the agricultural committee, and I'm not sure whether that's been in place or in effect for quite some time. I mean, I remember we used to have one 15 years ago, but I don't know if it's still in effect.
They would have been classified, there were work group meetings that REFTEL was put on with members of the staff. And the work groups were developers and other commercial properties, and then they had a general public meeting. So there were multiple group meetings to get comments from the whole township. But not specifically for agricultural.
Well, first of all, there was no agricultural committee.
No.
It was called the Ag Security Area Committee, that when somebody wanted to register their farm, their farm as to be an ag security area, they had to come before that committee to decide whether or not they could be in an ag security area. That's really all that they did.
So, any other potential agricultural groupings that were talked with about this?
No.
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 I don't think there was any specific agricultural committees. However, we did have, how many public meetings were advertised for this?
At least four.
Yeah, there was,
Which was open
Several.
for anybody, which was, whether you owned agricultural land, commercial land, residential land. I mean, we had how many meetings?
4.
I think
Yes.
4.
Well, and to be direct,
And
we,
they were public, and just to be clarified, they were publicly advertised, correct? And how were they publicly advertised?
Well, in the newsletter and in the local newspaper.
Okay, so while we may not have addressed agricultural specifically with agricultural organizations, we did address the overarching stormwater matter with all residents, which would include and encompass agriculture.
Okay, so under the Right to Farm Act, an acre, are you familiar with those laws that the municipality must comply with?
Here we go.
So, did you, under the Right to Farm Act or acre, go and look at comparative ordinances, regulations, for agriculture, for instance? Eric cited the Wilkes-Barre regulations.
doesn't the Right to Farm Act stipulate that the township can't impose regulations that are greater than the state's? Am I correct?
Well, that's one of the pieces. There's many pieces here, and one of the it's incumbent upon the township or any municipal organization to look at comparable situations. Okay, and that is what I'm asking. Did that in fact actually happen here, or was that not able to be done?
As far as I'm aware, Mr. Chairman, and for the board and Mr. Schaafstal, is my understanding is that Raftellus had a phase study that was with the township. That study went on for 6 months to 9 months, and that was to do a rate model for establishing stormwater user fees, a financial analysis, and that was phase 1 and 2, and then phase 3 was the actual billing resolution. And all those aspects of all their functions, I'm not aware of any review of these stormwater or Farm Act or any kind of review done by Raftellus. I would have to check and see what they did with that and get back to you, but to my knowledge.
We can have that discussion with Raftellus and then find out
Right.
exactly what in regards to agriculture did they look at and how they looked at that in regards to all the properties in the township in regards to the rate study.
And that report, I'm sure, was public. We have that.
What's that?
I said that report was public, so,
Yeah,
because it
we
was
have that.
presented here to us with the many options after their complete review, and rather a complex review. And just to respond to Eric, Eric, that was under a consideration in terms of credits. And the board, in its final decision after Raftellus's recommendation, that they said they would make the decision they made, but with ongoing review. But they needed to get it in place, and rather to make it complex the first year, that they would keep it very simple year 1, taking into consideration the credits that you talked about, and that is one of the things that is to be discussed as we would go into year 2, year 3, even though I know you're bringing it to our attention again for consideration.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, so my statements now would be, I guess, as follows. Simple does not meet the requirement of either the RTF or acre, okay? What the municipality and its authorities are responsible for is preferential, okay, for agriculture. What the municipalities are responsible for are best case. And I would place the burden on you guys to say, you're approaching worst case. And I'm with Eric that it now no longer makes sense, okay, for agricultural property to be acquired and used for agricultural purposes, given, the numbers that I would project are going to be coming from you. Now, I guess we have 30 days. I've read some of your materials. So we have 30 days to appeal. Okay. Under Acre, we have another appeal. And it's directly to the Attorney General's office. Okay. And it's basically, if we feel we're alone in this as agricultural producers, okay, that you haven't met those requirements, that you are not, being preferential in dealing with agriculture, which, by the way, precedes municipality code and law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, then that's where we can go. So what I think Eric and I and the other people who are holding on to agricultural property is to get some kind of real, not simple algorithms, but real agriculturally making us successful algorithms, which again is your requirement of the law, so that we can proceed not only with our current agricultural endeavors, but with future agricultural endeavors that we might do. So again, very much thank you for your time. Many people in this community prefer it not to be an agricultural or food desert, okay? As does the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, okay? Who is aligned with agricultural desires, okay? So, again, I appreciate your time and consideration in this matter.
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess I got to ask the solicitor, because for 2 years I've been following this issue, getting prepared to have to vote on it and such, and this is the first time I've ever heard that a municipality could be in violation of state law. And our consultants never said it. I never heard any other municipality say it, so this is interesting. And I guess I'll ask the solicitor, is this something that you're aware of, and is this something that the state would actually have an interest and jurisdiction in acting on?
Well, first of all, the right to farm law and acre have never been raised in this context before. So that's the first thing I can tell you. Secondly, under acre, farmers that believe they've been aggrieved by a local municipal regulation with regard to their farming operation can go to the Attorney General and file suit, and the Attorney General then decides whether or not he's going to make a claim against the municipality. I can tell you that, at least in my recollection, all of those usually involve land use ordinances, obviously, because farmers want to do some other things with their land that are agricultural related. So it comes up frequently in that context. I don't know if it's ever come up with regard to a taxing type of an ordinance, which is what this is. It's not a tax; it's a fee. They're different, but farmers still pay real estate tax. I mean, they can get clean and green assistance where they don't have to pay as much, but they still pay a tax. So I don't know that anybody would be successful under acre with regard to this, but nobody's done it yet. With the right to farm law, it's a similar situation, except usually the farmer is the one who brings the action under that act for whatever the violation is alleged. It's an interesting theory, but I don't know that it's ever been contemplated by either of those pieces of legislation.
Well, and the best part is, as Mr. Chrisman said, these are two valued property owners, and what you said is very important. And as we mentioned, this first year, we're trying to get this thing up and running, and we talked about it. There's these credits. You got to hire people. The costs change, so the rate might change. But this is something that obviously we're going to keep an eye on. Your valued property owners, farms as well, and Just we need to know the actual legalities. And, but just please, anybody watching, this is the first year, and we're going to do the best we can, and it's always going to be an open discussion.
Let's do this. We've heard the comments. We know that we need to do a little research on the side of farms. So let's just do a little bit. Let's do our research. Let's respond back to Mr. Kessler and Mr. Schaafstoff with the research from Raftelis and what we can find out there, and we can take the comments under advisement. If we need to make changes, we can make changes at a later date.
Mr. Weaver, I just had a question. Was Raftelis aware of this, because they are from North Carolina, that we have this in Pennsylvania about the right to farm and then the acre?
Again, to my knowledge, as part of their report that was provided to the township, and then the Phase 3 that was provided to the board, to my knowledge, I did not see that mentioned in the report.
And they've done consulting work for other municipalities within Pennsylvania, so I would tend to think that they would be well aware of that.
Okay.
Okay. So
But we will get an answer.
Let's take that route, and then we'll get back to them with a response. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, any other public comment? Okay. Hearing no more public comment. Any board member comments at this point in time? All right, no more board member comments. Okay, we'll go to the first item of business is the General Authority, Resolution 1907, approving the new LPTA stormwater user fee and sewer rental billing and collection policy. Mr. Weaver.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have in your packet Resolution 19-07, which is in final form and ready for board action. The revised policy was required with the initiation of the new stormwater fee beginning July 1st. Staff has completed the revisions of the current sewer billing and collection policy as follows. We've inserted the word stormwater in the applicable sections. We've also added a new subsection under billing to address complex stormwater fee accounts. And we've also added a new appeal procedure under Section 10 with a new stormwater fee appeal form. Essentially, these are the major revisions to the policy. Just as a reminder to the board and members of the public, this policy was recommended by our collection agent. That is recommended for any future legal action by a party that did not agree with their bill, that policies be in place, that we were following proper billing procedures. The stormwater appeal form, we sort of reached out to some local municipalities that are already established an appeal form, Derry Township, Upper Allen, Hampton Township, got some information from them. We liked some of the formats that they had, and we followed some of those in our own policy, and that is how we formatted that between staff and solicitor and engineer. And that really concludes my report on the policy. Again, it's in final form and ready for board action, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Weaver, Slusher Law Firm, are they with Modern Recovery?
No, they are actually the special counsel that handles bankruptcy matters, and they are not really actually used very often. Most of the activity that we have in the collections is with Modern Recovery and Solicitor Stein.
Have we used them before?
We have.
We have, okay.
Any other comments for Mr. Weaver? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2019-07, which approves the new LPT stormwater user fees, sewer rental billing, and collection policy as presented and recommended by Mr. Weaver.
Motion by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Lindsay. Any further discussion? I think we should probably do this by roll call vote, if we could do that, Shelley.
Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Mr. Chrisman?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Zumis?
Aye.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey? Mr. Blaine?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, now we're going to go to the sanitary sewer fund first. First item of business will be action on a request from property owner at 5521 Ridgeview Road for assistance in repairs to the private sewer line, including repairs to Ridgeview Road. Mr. Weaver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you will have a memo summarizing this agenda item. We have received a request from the property owner at Ridgeview Road for assistance in repairs to his private sewer line. In your packet, I've provided the email request from the property owner and also all the documentation that staff has on file. Essentially, the private sewer line that extends out into Ridgeview Road has settled, causing the sinkage in the road. Mr. Klein had spoke to the property owner or received an email. The sewer department got involved and went out and TV'd the line to assess whether or not the actual lateral itself could be causing this settlement. And we concluded from the TVing of it that there's a significant sag in the line, which is allowing water to settle. So based on our conclusion, it appears that it is the private sewer line that is causing the road to fail. I just went out there today. The road is in significant need of repair. It is a safety hazard. And whatever decision the board makes this evening, in any event, I'm going to recommend to the township and the authority that it be repaired as soon as possible because there is significant sinkage there. Are you John? You're here tonight? Okay. Would you like to make some comments?
Yeah,
Yep.
can you please come up to the podium and give us your name and address?
Well, my name is John Basharan. I live at 5521 Ridgeview Drive. I was here to ask, as you know, for assistance in resolving a sinkhole subsidence issue that has developed in front of my home. The reason I came to you guys instead of Public Works was all they're going to do is come out, they're going to throw down some dirt, and they're going to patch it, and we're just kicking the can down the road. The reason also, you have to go back to at least 2000. What happened was, every several months, the authority would come out and they'd have a team that would go from one sewer access point to the other sewer grate, and they would run a dredge back and forth, back and forth. I know this because the back pressure from that would cause sewer water to fountain out of my toilet if I didn't close the toilet lid and put towels over top of it. So naturally, I went down and I talked to the guys and I said, hey, what's going on here? What are you guys doing? And they said, basically there's a sag in the line, and they had to, it collects stuff, and they have to every couple months come by and dredge it out. And I explained my situation to me. At the time, sag in the line, it didn't really click with me, but you guys didn't install the line with a sag in it, which means that it was a subsidence issue. There was a groundwater sinkhole that's probably developed underneath that line. But the guy said, don't worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead from this manhole to this manhole. We're going to move that sewer line to the other side of the street. So that's what they did. They actually came out, they dug it all up. They said, we're going to abandon that sewer line in place. And they kind of did an elbow, and they moved my sewer connection to hook up to the new line that they installed. Everything seemed to be fine for a couple years. Not too long after that, as you guys know, you guys did the groundwater remediation where there was a lot of groundwater getting into the sewer line. So you guys came out and you guys actually replaced my sewer line coming into the main. Not too long after that, I started noticing the settlement. At first I just thought, hey man, it's the ground's starting to settle. They just dug it up and they disturbed the ground, and it's going to settle. So I every single year I'd come down with a couple wheelbarrows and I would wheelbarrow it and I'd put dirt down. but it kept getting progressively worse. And then the township actually started repairing it. So I think that what happened was whenever they disturbed the soil, that somehow they moved the way the groundwater actually travels in that area. Now, the original sag, I believe, happened because there's actually an underground stream really close to the surface. And I know this because the old farmhouse that sits right down over the hill, it actually surfaces in their basement, and that's where they used to store the milk containers to keep them cool. So I know that spring is fairly close to the surface, and if you follow the path, it's right up underneath the roadway. So I know there's a lot of groundwater infiltration in that area, and I'm asking for assistance to go ahead to get to the bottom of this, maybe put some type of different stone in there. I understand that I am responsible for my own sewer line. However, I don't believe that I should be responsible to repair a subsidence issue that has been pervasive throughout the last 20 years. And even if I would fix my sewer line, I wouldn't be able to fix the entire problem. I could fix a micro portion of it, but that subsidence is probably going to keep coming back. And I would keep having to repair that line and repair that line. So I don't believe it's just my problem. I believe it's my problem and the authority's problem, because eventually this subsidence could damage the main. So I'm hoping you guys can actually go ahead and talk to maybe the township engineer, and maybe we can find some sort of resolution to solve this subsidence problem in this area finally.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
Is my understanding we don't have an estimate yet?
That's correct. I don't believe the property owner, John, you have not gotten an estimate, correct?
No, I haven't.
The authority staff has not gotten an estimate this time. We just estimated on the high side, it could be anywhere between 10 and 20 until you get an estimate, because the contractor has to mobilize just to go out and do that specific job. So in our experience, unless you have multiple projects that a contractor's doing, then you're paying for that mobilization in one small job, so therefore the costs are a little higher. So that's why I was given such a big range, because you really don't know until you get the estimates.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Weaver, do you have any kind of time frame with regard to how long it might take us to get an estimate to see what that cost may be?
Jim, do you want to answer that?
Oh, sorry. Tricked your question, wrong person.
We would probably be able to have, and we'd have to get 3 estimates due to the cost. We'd probably be about maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Right. I understand we have to get 3 against municipal.
And we know, like, there is a way to fix this. It sounds like there's underground streams, and, like, you're confident there is a way. It's just a matter of...
Well, we haven't analyzed the fixing part, because we haven't been authorized by the board to fix it.
Right.
So what we would do is we'd basically have a contractor go out, if we were going to do it, and
When I say we, I mean, is it fixable in general first?
right,
I'm not...
we would have him give us a price to include meeting our standard. So our standard requires that they backfill it with stone, and it has to be compacted and tested. So the actual trench itself, where the sewer is, would be backfilled, okay? And it would be compacted, and it would be tested.
Was that standard in place when they did the original replacement?
That's a layered answer.
Okay.
The
I don't want to get too...
No, I can do it pretty quickly. The standard required that we backfill with stone, but until recently, in the last 6 or 7 years, we didn't actually pay to have someone come out and do the testing to confirm that the compaction met 100%. So they've always required to compact, but until the last 6 or 7 years, back when this project was done, there was no testing.
And you said it's now becoming a public safety issue with the roadway?
Absolutely. There's basically a hole right on the side of the road that, and I'm more afraid that in the interim, actually I was going to talk to Jeff after the meeting that we have to go out and do something, I think, in the interim, just because it's getting worse. So just to follow up really quick on what you just asked about studying what we would do, what John's referring to is the whole area.
Right.
We would not analyze that. We would have to go out, if the board would decide that the authority would do it, we would follow our standard and have Tim and Jim analyze it while they're out there doing the project. If there's underlying stuff, then Tim and Jim would say, okay, we're redefining the scope. You got to go out further and build this up because there's water issues. We've done that before, but until you get down there and see what you have, you can't really do that kind of study. So we would go out, have Tim and Jim analyze that now that we know that there could be. So we wouldn't have that information until you actually start doing the work.
Mr. Weaver, had we ever had this issue in the township before where we did take care of problems like this?
Fortunately, we've done over 4,000 private sewers, and we've only had a few that fail. So yes, we have. We've had probably 4 or 5, maybe half a dozen tops in the last 14 years. We started doing sewer replacement work in 2005, and we've only had 4, so that's pretty good.
But we did take care of those 4, the authority.
We
paid
did.
for it.
It required authority action.
Right, okay.
Similar to this, staff would have to reject it because we have an agreement that says that basically the maintenance is the property owners, and then the property owner has to appeal to the board that basically would override that agreement.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, there, Mr. Chrisman?
based on the request of the applicant, I am not in a position to move to approve this resolution. But what I would ask is that this board direct Mr. Weaver and his department to go out and do a review, do an assessment, and get us an estimated cost so that we could make a good decision.
Okay, Mr. Chrisman, thank you very much. Any other comments from any other board members?
I think we're ultimately inclined to fix it. And would like to see us fix it before we even did any preliminary patchwork to save that additional expense. Can we move that fast?
I'm going to defer to Jeff. He hasn't looked at it recently, but I'm going to ask Jeff to go out and make some recommendations because that's really his deal, the road.
So let me throw this out to you. I mean, we're gonna have a sewer authority meeting again right?
Correct.
Do you think between now and June 18th that we can have you guys go out, do your assessment?
Yes,
Come
absolutely.
back to
Good.
us with some thoughts in regards to what it's going to take to fix it and preliminary cost estimates to get the work done.
We can do that.
Okay, that's good.
Then I would say to this board, if everybody's okay with this board, then we postpone action on this until until June 18th board meeting.
If it's that much of a public safety issue, do we have something around it? Are we putting it, so that nobody does drive into it?
We can, now that we know where we're going, we can do something even very temporary like that cold patch, which is in the first picture there. That's not going to be of much cost to us. And
Okay.
and if that doesn't help, then we will go.
Okay.
Is that okay? We give us a little bit of time to really assess it, so we can come back with a better plan on how to fix it, the cost to fix it, and therefore we can try to get this all resolved within the next 90 days.
I understand, and that's fine.
Okay.
I do appreciate your time, and I would ask just one other thing for consideration. It's never been right. Ever since they actually did the hookup, it's never been right. I don't know whether they didn't compact the soil. I don't know whether they didn't tamp it down. I work in facilities and engineering out at Fort Indian Town Gap, and I used to work for the Department of Environmental Resources. I've seen subsidence issues, and if you compact the soil and you put the proper the stones down, this should not happen. I truly feel that this was negligence, or maybe I wouldn't say purposeful negligence, but those guys were doing a lot of sewers at that time. And I just think that they just maybe would have rushed through this, and unfortunately mine was the one that it actually happened to. because maybe they didn't know about the groundwater in that area, and they didn't know to take special care and consideration in taking care of that area.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then just to make sure from a safety standpoint, Jeff, if we can make sure that we do this. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Next item then will be Resolution 191201 through 191221, authorizing condemnation of temporary easements of private sewer replacements in SC2B mini basin. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. These are the standard resolutions for acquiring temporary construction easements for the replacement of the private sewers in the SC2B project. We have a total of 21 property owners who declined to sign the private sewer replacement agreement. This is equal to the typical percentage that we get. It's about 15% for each project. We had a total of 140 agreements required, and we have 119 signed to date and returned, leaving the remaining 21. So in order to perform the work, we have to get authorization for the board, for Solicitor Stein to begin negotiating the settlement. If they continue to decline, then Mr. Stein would be authorized to proceed with the eminent domain to get the temporary easement. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions by board members?
This is straightforward, Mr. Chairman.
If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve resolutions 2019-12-01 through and including 2019-12-21 as prepared, as recommended by Mr. Weaver.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crispin. The motion's on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Eby. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, down to the good part, I guess, township reports. Mr. Weaver,
Yes.
best loan update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm happy to report that we opened bids for the BC2 project, and we received very favorable bids. Dolly Construction was the low bidder, $16,933,000. The engineer's estimate was 17.9, so there's significant savings there in terms of the engineer's estimate compared to the bid amount. The Penvest loan for this project includes the sewer work only, so the stormwater portion is not part of that. So I just wanted to provide a brief update that we did get favorable bids. We had a conference call with Penvest today to schedule the Penvest settlement. We were not able to do that, unfortunately, because we have an amendment to our encroachment permit, which has not been issued by DEP. So hopefully, now that we have favorable bids and we're going to have Mr. Smita come see the authority in the township to start the legal paperwork, that Penvest will be able to help because they work with DEP on these loans, and we're hoping that Penvest can go to DEP and say, hey, can you push this permit through because we want to close on our loan and start the project. The total loan amount is $13.2 million, and we expect to use the difference in the funding from the stormwater fund for the stormwater portion, and then the remaining fund for the surplus funds from prior budgets to do the remaining sewer work to close out the 16.9 of that contract. And that's my report for the Penvest loan. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Weaver on the Penvest loan?
Nope.
All right, Bill, no questions there. Why don't you go on to the status of the building sewer replacements in SC2B?
That's actually going to be Mr. Wetzel. Sorry, Jim. Turn the mic on.
Jim, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, board members, as we wait and see if we can get the laser going here. As Bill said, we have approximately about 130 properties in this SC2B area. All of the properties here in yellow are areas that our I&I crew has completed to date. It's approximately 20 of the properties that we've got done and it's been about a month since we started We have 2 crews out there working. Our inspectors have generated a second crew until we get our BC2 project up and running. So they've been out assisting our regular I&I crew with these rehab projects or building sewer replacements. So in this area here, we have still approximately about four properties, that one there to do, that one there to do, that one and that one. These are properties, 2 of them that we do not have agreements for, and 2 of them we have issues on them that we can't do those as of yet. So once we complete those 4 in this little area here, that'll take care of here. Then our plan is to go out here onto Union Deposit Road and take care of these businesses here, which are Turkey Hill, the Catholic Diocese property, a couple of the medical buildings, and then we also have the Central Dauphin School District there over in here to do. We have a lot of testing in there to do because we do have a bunch of PVC pipe that we hope to salvage. Once we complete that, then once school gets out, we're going to go over here to Pleasant Road and take care of these properties in here. And the reason we're waiting for that is because a lot of the teachers park here on Pleasant Road, and it would be a major disruption to that road. So therefore, as I said, we're going to wait till school gets out to do these properties along here, and then also the school in the school district, Central Dauphin CD East area there. And then once we're finished with those, then we have what's called the Twin Lakes north area here, or south area here. This is that whole housing development in here. We have just about all of the agreements in there. And again, as you know, we just decided to put those for the condemnation to hopefully receive those through Mr. Stein. So this area here will be a little bit more challenging for us because we will have a lot of underground utilities in here, mainly probably water and electric, I believe. So they will take a little more time to get done, but our crew has been used to doing those in the past couple areas that we've been in, so they're a little more experienced in dealing with these underground utilities. So again, out of 130 properties, we have 20 done to date, and we plan on continuing to knock those out until we're completed.
Jim, thank you. Thank you for the update. Any questions for Jim? All right. While we're there, why don't we talk about the status of this Twin Lakes South residents' request to keep the Galleon Street landscape median?
That'll be Mr. Knoll.
Yeah, I should have had Jim just continue, as this is in the same project area, and he did a really nice job covering that. Just to give you a kind of background, again, of where we're at, north is straight up on your diagram here on your plan, and we're talking about the area of Galleon Street, the island area, the landscaped island, generally runs on Galleon Street between the intersections of Galleon with Spring Creek Road and Sweetbriar Drive. This area right here, this is actually Dowhauer Road, and I would say about a half mile from that point. If you head north, you'd hit Union Deposit Road, just to give you an idea where we're at. So you can see here underneath the island itself, we have downstream manhole at that intersection, upstream manhole at this intersection, and in between those 2 points we have the landscaped island. At this point, existing conditions, you can see there's 2 mature trees that are on top of our sanitary sewer. There's about 140 feet of just grass that's separated between the paved area by concrete curbing. So as part of kind of our investigation heading into this area, we wanted to make sure that, if trenchless lining was the approach that we were going with, we wanted to make sure that we could line these pipes. We went in here and TV'd this pipe, which was installed based on our records around 1965. It's a clay pipe, so you can imagine a pipe that's approaching 60 years of age and is clay, is not in very good condition. There were various cracks, and there were issues with active infiltration in the joints. So we headed to our March 25th neighborhood meeting to present the concept of excavation and replacement from upstream manhole to downstream manhole. I can't read the numbers there, but basically the sewer that runs underneath the island area. And the feedback that we received was quite clear from the public at the
Tim's
neighborhood
being
meeting.
polite.
Yeah. They wanted us to explore any other alternatives that we had to rehabilitate this section.
They wanted to keep the island. They made it very clear at the public meeting.
So we looked at a couple different trenchless technologies. Ultimately, this whole area, we're going with a cured-in-place pipeliner, which ended up being really the most cost-effective approach for this section. As we probably have talked about a number of times before, cured-in-place isn't going to solve all your defects. If you have sags in your pipe or you have, significant offset joints, your liner is going to kind of mirror those hose pipe issues. So fortunately here, we don't have any of those defects in this section. So we are able to line this section. We did also, one other thing to point out is just this storm sewer that crosses the island here, and then there's a 30-inch diameter that kind of runs parallel with the island. Seeing that we own the storm sewer now, we wanted to just ensure that before we told these residents that we weren't going to dig up the island, that this pipe was in good condition, and we were able to do that. So basically that's it. We just wanted to provide the board with an update on the decision that was made and the communication with the residents. There is a letter in your packets was that sent out?
No.
Okay.
Nope, tomorrow. We
So
wanted
it's
to
a
make
letter-
sure that the board was okay with keeping the island and asking Mr. Klein to cut the grass if he had to.
Yeah, that was my question.
He's
Do we
shaking his
take care
head,
of
no,
it?
he doesn't want to do that. Right now, just for the board's information, some of the residents are getting older, and they're starting to complain about cutting the grass. But once we told them that we would keep the island for them, some of the residents did step up and say they will continue to mow it. But if they don't, it's basically in the public right of way. So someone would have to do it. But
Yeah, because that was my question. Do we mow it or do they mow it? So they're mowing it.
We have never mowed it.
You have never mowed
they've
it.
taken care of it to date, so I guess we have to trust them at this point. So just under township reports, we didn't request any action, but we just wanted to make sure the board was okay with Tim's analysis, is that he feels he can keep the island and still meet all of his design criteria, and just wanted to make sure the board was okay with that.
Well, I think it's great that, the residents came to you with a request and you went out of your way to see if you could accommodate it. I appreciate that.
I support it as long as they make a firm commitment to keep the grass cut.
Absolutely.
So two questions for you. Number one, going with the lining then versus the full pipe replacement is clearly a cost savings.
Correct.
Yeah, clear cost savings.
It is, yep.
All right, so that's a positive and a plus. Second thing is, isn't it a little bit of a concern though that you have residents in the middle of the street mowing the right of way? Because if anybody's ever been there, it's not exactly a really wide road right there on either side of the median, and they're out, and you have older people out in the middle of the street cutting the grass,
They come
even though
flying
even though they are in the grassed area that is curbed. Still, is that a little bit of a concern that maybe we shouldn't just take maintenance of that and just do it?
However, they've been doing it for how many years?
Yeah, but you know what? We could take that approach on almost anything, and then next thing you know, someone gets hit by a car. Now we have some type of risk or liability because they're out cutting our right of way.
It's the only way in, right, Jim? That's the only way in, is that street.
Yeah, off of
Right.
Spring
Spring
Creek's the
Creek.
only way. Yeah.
Any ideas there, Jeff, about, it's a pretty wide street. Would they be able to cone it? Yeah.
Here's the problem, we keep taking on all this extra mowing. We're strapped now.
Yeah.
Just this year alone, we took straight wind property wrong right here. I mean, it just keeps coming.
Yep.
Well, let's not take it on if we don't have to.
But you do make good decisions right.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for years. These are grown-ups.
Yeah, but if something happens, we're responsible. If somebody would get hit or get hurt.
My question
No, we're
would
not
be,
responsible.
Was there an
No.
agreement 45 years ago?
Yeah, that exactly. I mean,
I don't know.
Do we have any records or anything internally that tells us that the neighborhood there, the neighborhood association, there might have been an association at the time. Who knows?
Okay, we
Would
can
take care
dig in.
of-
We can
yeah.
dig into the old files when that development was approved and get back to the board
Okay.
on any kind of.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
probably within their association covenants,
Okay.
Tim, I just
if
had a
they
question.
have one.
Yeah, I just had a question. The 2 trees, they're okay? They're not? Because remember, we had the issue on Jonestown Road. We thought for sure they were going to be into the sewer, and luckily they weren't, the sycamores. So I'm just curious if the trees are that old, they're not going down into the sewer lines?
Well, there was root intrusion in that section of sanitary sewer. I didn't mention that. So we had to cut out the roots before we could actually televise it. When you're installing the cured in place liner, that's going to be basically a brand new pipe inside the hose pipe. So that should prevent, the root intrusion
Okay.
issues. There's not going to be any joints for those roots to enter the sanitary
Okay.
system.
I was more concerned about that because the trees are old. Thank you.
So just to end this conversation, then, Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
I think everything's good with the landscape median, obviously, but can we do a little bit of research just from a liability perspective to make sure that, if they are cutting the grass there, is there some type of a agreement that said they would cut the grass? Okay.
We will get back
All right.
to the board on that.
Okay, sounds good. What about an update on the new pole building?
Yes, board members, again, it's under township reports. We're not asking for any board action this evening, so I'll be brief. The total estimate that you have in your packet that was provided by Jason is $383,000. That was an extensive amount of work that HRG put into getting quotes from the actual builders that install these manufactured pole buildings. This includes all the site work. What it does not include, as you may recall from our last meeting, that we did run into a problem where we hit some soft material. So this cost does not include our staff time to go out, remove this material, and put in engineered fill. By engineered fill, I mean we'd have to do it ourselves and put the stone in and compact it, have it compacted, tested, and we'd be able to have it pad ready for the contractor. Secondly, you may also recall that based on staff's concern that looking down 10, 20, 30 years from now with the potential with, Public Works and Sewer already working together on the stormwater operation, this MS4 requirements, how big does our building need to be in 20 years? Because if a building would need to be extended out the back, where the pole building is proposed would conflict with that. So Brad and I met with GHD. They came up with a proposal that was reasonable to analyze that. They interviewed Jeff and Brad and I and came up with this report. Fortunately, the report shows that essentially we have 5 locker rooms left in our building. Jeff has, did you say 6? 6. So basically what they found is that both buildings reasonably large enough to sustain the increased work in the MS4, the increase in development over the years. It was a very well thought out report. So I want to thank GHD for the work that they did on this. It was very well thought out. They provided the staffing projections based on EPA projections and talking to local municipalities. That's also in your report that shows that basically our staffing levels are equivalent to surrounding areas. The population of Lower Paxton projected with the comprehensive plan puts us about 55,000. So when he looked at the total staffing needs at that projection, he felt that our buildings would be big enough. He concluded that putting the pole building at its current location should be sufficient. However, Jeff did point out that the only thing that this does not address is vehicles. So if we do continue to increase vehicles, pickup trucks, additional hauling equipment, that Jeff's building has some limitations there. So this building would be shared 27% from the stormwater fund. For Jeff, the budget does include hiring potentially two different people. With the increase in the MS4 requirements, there's increases in leaf collection and street sweeping to comply with the permit. And also the MS4 inspections, you have 266 outfalls you have to inspect within 5 years. So we hope that we can build this pole building, take the need that we have now that we've shown you with the old garage that is deteriorated at Walnut Street, build this building, have some room for Jeff for the next couple of years. But the report concluded that, you know, the only thing is in 10, 15, 20 years from now, if you outgrow that pole building, the only place really you can go is to the lot that we own next door, which is, of course, a concern with the community next door. But you could certainly put screening around it, and it would just be for storage and not operational. But that's way down the road, may never need to happen. The reason we can't build the building bigger now or propose to the board to do that is the existing stormwater pipe. I think it's 18-inch, I believe, 18-inch pipe that runs right back to the detention basin, right next to where we're going to put the pole building. So if we would make the pole building wider, we'd build it over this pipe, so the pipe would have to be relocated. That would significantly increase the costs. We didn't pursue that. We felt that it's probably in the best interest of the authority to pursue the plan that we have in place. So essentially, all we're asking for the board tonight is just to get the okay to actually meet with the township, because the township owns the property. We'd have to get their permission to proceed with Jason to do a land development plan. And Jason, how long would that take?
To put the plan together with the amount of work we've done already wouldn't take too long. I would think we could do that probably in 6 weeks to two months maybe at most. It would have to run through the process, the typical process, which could take a little bit more time.
Planning commission and board of supervisors?
Board of supervisors meeting,
okay.
yes.
So probably 3 months you estimate?
I think that's probably a best case scenario, 3 to 5 maybe, looking at things more realistically.
So we just want to make sure the board's okay with authorizing Jason and I to meet with the supervisors to propose a land development plan.
The supervisor's okay with that? All right, that's fine. Move on.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else you want to talk about there?
No,
Or
sir.
do you want to go right to the engineer's report? Our favorite report, GHD.
Go for it, Melissa.
All right, I'll just stay here.
You can stay there.
I'll
if you
stay
want.
here. All right. I don't know, we talked about a lot of the projects already going on. You know, Bill discussed that we opened bids for BC2 on Friday. The results are pretty good with that one. You know, I won't read through here. Hopefully everybody has already done that, but
Thank you.
is there any questions on anything that we had listed in here?
Any questions from anybody on the engineer's report? I think everybody had a chance to read that, digest it over the weekend. Any questions or comments? I mean, pretty much the report is pretty consistent with what we've already covered.
Unless there's anything special that pops out to you that you think that we absolutely should be reinforced in what we learned when we read it. Okay, that's
I don't
fine.
think so.
I didn't see anything, but by the same token, many times I'll read it there, but there's something that's extremely important to you that you need to reinforce our learning. Okay.
No, not this period.
It's an old school teacher thing.
All right, hearing no comments, we'll go on to the Stormwater Fund at this point in time. There is no old or new business to cover, so we'll go right to township reports. Status of the stormwater improvements, 2019 LPT drainage improvements project bid results.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, good news again. For the stormwater fund portion, the engineer's estimate was $2.9 million for the BC2 project. Bids came in at $1.6 million. You also may recall the engineer presented a bid award to the supervisors for the 2019 drainage improvement projects, and that also came in, it was about $300,000 under engineer's estimate, correct, Jason? So we have two projects to date, the 2019 and the BC2, and they both have come in favorable, significantly under the engineer's estimate. The last step will be to get the projected 3-year PRP costs, and staff is in the process of meeting with CRW and Susquehanna and DEP to finalize the PRP plan and our individual permit. Once we get closer to getting the implementation plan finalized with the final costs, we will give the board an update, hopefully at the June or July meeting, of what our total cost will be in stormwater improvements over the next 5 years. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Weaver, the stormwater projects, one is Stonebridge.
Yes.
Okay, and what's the other one?
That is what Jason and I will be meeting with DEP and Susquehanna and CRW about. Right now, the only one that's on the table for us is Stonebridge. We don't have the permit yet, so we're no obligation to start it.
Right, okay, but that's one of
But
them.
we were looking at Earl Drive, but there's some negative feedback, I believe, so we're going to maybe start talking about looking at other areas as well, right, Jason? Or?
Correct, yes. The other projected projects identified in the plan are actually in Susquehanna Township for the kind of first portion of the plan. So Stonebridge Apartments is really the only one that's located here in Lower Paxton Township that will get the immediate attention.
Did we finish the Forest Lane one? I think we had talked about that a couple months ago. Or Forest Hills? Oh, that one starts this year, okay. Continues, okay.
Okay. Any other questions there? Mr. Weaver, do you want to talk about the projected 3-year joint PRP stream bank restoration project? Is that?
We just did that. We're good.
Okay. All right. So
We
we're
can go
past
right
that.
down to the stormwater
We
billing.
can go right down to status of the implementation of the stormwater user fee.
Correct.
Are you okay up there?
I am. I apologize. I was looking for
right.
my too many papers, so I had to get all the way to the bottom. In your package, you'll have the update from Raftellus. Raftellus provided the final bill file development as part of the Phase 3. In their report, you'll see that basically the parcel and impervious area data has been compiled. There's a total of 17,707 parcels for a total ERU of 31,954. We had 2,631 non-significant parcels. Of that, 1,229 did not contain any impervious area and then will not receive a bill. Parcel exclusions. Parcels for residential use were excluded for common private streets and other common areas. That was denoted as 16 parcels. That was also part of the billing resolution, as you may recall. Moving down the commercial common area allocation, essentially this is condos. There's 5 properties in the township that are commercial condos. It was proposed by Raftellus and staff and met with Steve. Steve agreed that the appropriate thing to do with those folks is the Dauphin County courthouse has records under the declarations. The declarations provide on how they bill their taxes. We followed the same methodology for these 5 property owners, and the file was developed. This is just an example of the distribution. So it basically shows every unit owner's percent interest in the common element. Moving on, the aggregation. So we have parent-child parcel relationships. In order to bill effectively, we wanted to provide commercial property owners the ability to get one bill for multiple parcels. That'll also save staff and postage costs and processing fees. So you'll see in this report they have 150 parcels with 289 associated child parcels. So essentially what this is most of the time is you'll have a building with a lot next to it that's owned by the same property owner, but it's parking related. And there's various other issues that involve aggregation. After removal of the vacant parcels and the other aggregations, we have a total of 16,158 accounts. So if we go back to the beginning, you saw we had actually 17,900 parcels. So essentially, we'll actually just be sending out 16,158 bills for a total of 31,913 ERUs. Finally, the matching. This was a significant effort to match all of the current Logic accounts to these parcels. It was a tremendous amount of work by staff and Raftellus. The only thing remaining that we have, they sent us one last difficult file of about 500 properties. We sent the file back to them today. Staff did a good job the last week finding these very unique parcels that took a lot of research to nail down. In summary, we're really pleased with the work that Raftellus has done as part of their Phase 3. We expect to have the final file transmitted to Logix by the end of the week. Logix needs 3 weeks to build the stormwater user fee file and upgrade the software to add that to the current billing for the sewer customers, and then also having that ability to bill the separate stormwater-only customers. And we also put in, of interest to Mr. Kessler and Mr. Schofstall that they spoke about this evening, we have very unique situations that took a lot of time for staff to research, and basically what we're proposing for the board this evening is 3 different letters to be mailed out to these different affected complex customers. The first one's easy, is the septic system owners. That's just basically people that have never received any kind of notice other than the newsletter and the public meetings. If they didn't attend those, they didn't get the billing inserts. So it was recommended, I believe, by Mr. Judd, that we send these folks a letter. So we have prepared this letter. If you have any comments, please get them to me. We'll send this letter out. You'll see is dated next week. Basically just gives them the idea that their bill is coming. The next bill is, or the next letter is for the agriculture property owners, which Mr. Kessler, Mr. Schofstall have commented on tonight. Essentially what is here is that the Dauphin County has a Dauphin County land use data shows a farm classification for the properties at Lower Paxton. There's multiple classifications for multiple purposes, but Raftellus pulled all that information, and they basically generated a list of, I believe there's 39 agricultural property owners in Lower Paxton that have that designated land use. So we thought that it would be in our best interest to be fair to the agricultural folks, to send them a letter first to say, basically, you are designated as agricultural. If you're doing any agricultural farming operations in accordance with the zoning ordinance definition, then you're going to be billed as a single-family residential based on impervious surface. And if you don't believe that you are, then Steve came up with a form for us, falsification to authorities. Basically, they'd have to sign that, swearing that they are not performing any agricultural or commercial activity. And then we'd go out and do an inspection, verify that. If all that is true, then they would be eligible to be billed as a single-family residential because they're not performing any business activity in accordance with the zoning ordinance. Finally, we have the aggregation letter, and the aggregation letter is just to those parent-child relationships that I just went over. And we wanted to make sure that these people were aware that we're reaching out to them to make sure that they understand that they're getting a aggregated bill. If they want an individual bill for each property, then they need to contact us. And that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the stormwater billing update.
Any questions for Mr. Weaver?
Yeah. Bill, I just have two. The customers in West Hanover, they're going to get a letter that they're not going to be responsible because there's like 200 and some of them that are on our sewer. And we've had numerous calls that, why do I have to pay the stormwater? And I think you and I had talked, you were going to send a letter to them telling them that they don't have to pay the stormwater in July.
Well, the bill was going out in 4 weeks, so we were just going to send the bills out and they wouldn't get one. So we figured they would conclude. We got one person that sent an email, and that's all we have. And we just recommended to them that they contact West Hanover to see if they were doing a stormwater fee.
Okay, because I know
So
I
I
had
think we'll
talked to
be
you, I had
okay.
numerous
Yes.
calls from Country Manor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we haven't received. So if we get additional calls about it, we can certainly send those folks a letter to tell them to contact West Hanover to see if they're going to do a stormwater fee. Because I'm not aware. I probably ought to follow up and just find out
Yeah,
from
because
West
it
Hanover
was
if they're
on
going to
our
do
bill,
one.
because I had a couple calls, why do I have to pay it? I don't live in Lower
Right.
Paxton.
Yep.
And then the other one is, how many septic systems do we have in Lower Paxton?
We have approximately about 580. That was the matching file that Cindy and our staff
Right.
worked on the
Okay,
last
'cause
week.
I thought we had I thought at one time there was like 2,500.
No.
No, okay, so it's five. I saw the 500 and some. That's why I'm questioning, because I thought at one time there was 2,500. So
So
that
the
could've been a
file,
long
the,
time
the
ago.
original file was 580.
Okay.
Staff's research for the last week found out there was many more, but not to that level. There's
Okay.
probably maybe another 100 to 150. So the 580 could go up to 700, but I don't have the final count. I can get an answer to you in June.
They include sand mounds also?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Let's move on to the status of the LPT MS4 general permit.
Yes, I'll be very brief. MS4 permit, there's an annual report that Jason has to do by the September, correct?
Correct. The reporting period actually closes the end of June. However, the reports are due to DEP the end of September. So we're assisting township and authority staff in getting the information needed to complete those reports on time.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Any board member comments on that? All right, how about let's go to the comment letter from PADEP.
Yes, board members. We received through Randy Allen a comment letter from DEP on the joint PRP. We had a meeting with the other parties, CRW and Susquehanna, along with HRG. We were intending to ask for additional time. The end of that letter just basically says if you need more than 90 days to respond, then you have to come up with a compliance plan, or I should say a proposed submission schedule, not a compliance plan, excuse me. HRG estimates that it could take a good 60 to 90 days to prepare that. CRW also has to do some things. We're meeting with DEP on June 10th, and HRG will have their proposed schedule for the submission at that time, and we'll update the board in June. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Weaver on that one?
Wait for June.
Okay. Just moving right along there, Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
How about that? I mean, let's go to the status of these private property owner requests for assistance in the conveyance systems. Nancy Drive and Hidden Lake Drive.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you're aware, we've been working for the last few months on Nancy Drive. The board has authorized that repair to be done, or the private conveyance system policy. Jeff Klein and I and Jim met with the property owners over the last few months. We hit a snag with the neighbor. She was fine, worked with us great to get the easement. She actually is very knowledgeable about construction. She pointed out that we need more temporary easement because the contractor is probably going to go around the back of our property. Jason revised the exhibit to do that. It got more complicated because there's a trench drain in her driveway that has settled. She wants confirmation that we're going to fix that. So now Jeff has to go back, talk to the contractor to get a price for that. So unfortunately, we're here to report that we were going to do it. We have some delays. The area is fenced off though, right, Jeff? Yeah. So it's going to be a few weeks until we get the contractor out to do that work.
Well, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll be hopefully reporting to you in the June meeting that the work is complete.
Okay.
Hidden Lake, we have a map. We have a map. This is a little more complicated. So first off, the only authorization we got or requested from the board at the request of the property owner is just to investigate. We didn't get any authorization from the board or request from the property owner to do any construction. So what you have here is our GHD launch asset management system. And I'll turn it over to Tim, if you don't mind, Tim. You're better equipped to take it from here. But let me just make one other comment is, at this point, again, it's a township report. We're not asking for any board action. What I'm going to recommend is that Public Works and township staff start cataloging these things to put in as part of a capital improvement plan, because as Tim will explain, this could be a very expensive fix. So I'll let Tim explain more.
Okay, just to kind of summarize where the issue is, get my laser pointer back on again. So here's the property owner with the sinkhole in their yard. The sinkhole is basically at a manhole. And what this map shows is the orange lines are storm sewers, green is sanitary sewer. This is showing, based on our records, that we had 1 or 2 connections coming into this manhole. We actually have a total of 3. There's a tributary that you can see is mapped right here. That tributary runs into, I believe it's a 24-inch diameter pipe that runs underneath the street, connects into this manhole. And I mean, that's enough of not a really good situation, but to make things worse, it's based on the records that we were able to find, it's about 30 feet deep at the connection point into that manhole. And then we have another, it's actually not really shown on here, but I believe we have another similar situation, maybe a kind of a swale that collects stormwater runoff from a number of properties and flows into an 18-inch diameter pipe that then, I don't think it's,
Photo 2 has the picture.
There you go. That was right. Now that's it. That shows the 3 pipes coming in, Tim, I believe.
yeah, that's a little more accurate than what our GIS did show. But here's the pipe I was talking about, the 24-inch that pipes the tributary, the 15-inch coming across, I believe, either 15 or 18-inch, and then this pipe is much more shallow. But these 2 pipes coming in are around the same elevation in that manhole. They're just about 30 feet deep. Our staff went out, opened this manhole to televise, or to attempt to televise, and the manhole was partially filled with water. They weren't able to actually see these pipes coming in. They went down to the outfall structure and weren't able to, basically the pipe was in poor condition. It's CMP, and weren't able to really find any more information down there or really televise anything. So at this point, we know we have an issue. We don't exactly know where it is. Without, there is no way to really televise this and determine if there's like an offset here at the manhole with one of these 2 pipes coming in, or the 36-inch that leaves that manhole. But just not a really good situation.
Tim thought the development should be renamed from Hidden Lake to Hidden Stream because they piped...
Hidden Creek.
Oh, Hidden Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically piped the creek. There's the hole. So Jeff did fence it off. We do... Go ahead.
For the 4 supervisors, this was the one of the 4 or 5 I showed
Mhm.
Yes.
And this is a sticky wicket. I mean, it's a very long system. Hate to go back to this, but mostly on private property. So,
That's another problem,
It's,
how far do you go?
right?
How deep is it, Jeff?
Well,
The hole?
they don't know because the manhole was flooded, but they got down to about 28 feet, was it, Jim?
25 feet we measured.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that's
it was
how-
at least 25
How
feet.
deep, how big the hole is?
well, no.
No, I'm asking how
deep
big,
the line
yeah.
We filled the hole back in.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the pipe that is probably causing the problem was the one for the manhole or the outfall.
This
Probably.
36 inch.
That
Yeah.
doesn't mean these other three are in good shape either.
Well, they put a tape measure down the manhole, and
Right.
it went down 25 feet.
And
Right.
still couldn't see anything.
Right.
So it's
I
deeper
was
than
just
that.
curious, like, with the fence around it, how deep it is, but you
Right.
filled it in,
No,
okay.
that's not too bad.
Yeah,
Right,
you,
okay.
you can't really see the manhole structure
Okay, good.
itself, but it is buried, I believe, 5 or 6 feet from
Because I know when
from
we had the
grade.
picture last year, it was pretty ugly.
Yes.
Yes, so just to sum this up, as the board's aware, Steve has provided his legal opinion for the authority that these private situations are private, but because you have an MS4 permit, this is a perfect situation to explain that that will be an MS4 violation down the road, because if you don't fix it, you could have an MS4 violation. Trying to go after the property owner, those stormwater pipes were put in over 25 years by 3 different developers, and trying to find out who owns that stormwater pipe, you'd probably spend just as much money in litigation as you would in trying to fix it. So I'm just giving an update to the board. Staff's going to catalog these. We have many, not as bad as this, but other stormwater issues. This would be part of a capital improvement plan that would have to be budgeted. So when we start the budget process in August, we'll come to the board with a budget, and this will certainly go on the list. But it's going to take a significant effort by staff and HRG to come up with some kind of way to fix it. I'll be
Okay.
happy to answer any other questions. I'm sure Jeff and Jim and Tim would as well. And Jason.
Any other questions from the board members?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, down to the last and final item on the agenda, which is the engineer's report for the Stormwater Fund. Jason, you're up.
Thanks. Similarly to the sanitary sewer fund, Mr. Weaver did a good job of discussing a lot of the hot topics related to the stormwater program. One item I would like to bring to your attention is the Stonebridge Apartments project. By the end of this week, the township will be submitting a grant application in hopes of obtaining funding for that project. Other than that, we've been assisting staff in matters pertaining to the MS4 program, the Joint Pollution Reduction Plan, various stormwater management design projects and construction projects, as I outlined in our report. So be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have regarding any of those items.
I was looking with interest on the separate stormwater system infrastructure mapping. Is that, at some point, we will have an updated map of private and public infrastructure? Or is that an ongoing?
Well, I asked Jason to prepare an estimate for the board on what that'll cost. As you may recall, we did discuss, under MS4 permitting, we're required to have access to the public and the private. Wherever public water leads to the private system has to be mapped, and it leads to an outfall. We have some mapping, but Jason is looking at the current mapping, and then his people have to give us a price of what it's going to cost to fix it, to do exactly what you said, to show both.
Right. That'd be interesting to hear how that goes. And obviously, as we go forward with this stormwater project, which is going to go into the future, I think it'd be good to have a detailed map of what we're dealing with.
It's required by law, so we will
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah,
Under
that's-
the MS4 permit, you
yeah.
have to have it.
It'd be good
So-
for us and the public to see.
As well, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, before we go to adjournment, I just want to extend a thank you to Justin Eby, who will be, he is moving, and this is his last meeting as a member of the authority board. And I just want to say, you've been on the board for 4 years, I think, and it's been 5, so it's been an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to get to serve with you. You brought a lot of insight and good thought into the process. We really appreciate your time and effort and giving back to the community like you did. Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, sure. No, it's been an interesting 5 years. We've accomplished a lot. We've gotten away from really doing the full rehab to kind of stepping back and analyzing this a little bit more, which I appreciate. Also, a great opportunity, privilege to be appointed for 5 years, and unfortunately, some personal decisions. I do have to move out of the township, but I will occasionally drop in to see how you guys are doing and watch your YouTube videos. So better be on your behavior. But also just to staff, I actually had the privilege to work with Dave Ramsey with the Loround Sewer Authority when I was in college. But both authorities, this authority as well, top notch as far as management. And Mr. Weaver, it's been a pleasure. You definitely take a lot of my suggestions, which I appreciate. You just don't, so thank you very much.
It was our pleasure as well, believe me. We're sorry to see you go, Justin.
Well, we're losing a board member. I'm losing a board member and a neighbor who lives on my block. So hopefully both replacements will be top notch.
I won't get to see you walk the dog and the baby around the neighborhood.
Good luck, Justin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, I would also like to thank you for the service that you provided to this municipality. However, it is not the end. Even though you're moving, you're still only a phone call away. And so therefore, I expect you as a former resident of Lower Paxton Township to still be available for some help and some responses when we need them. And the answer will be, of course, I'll be happy to help.
Definitely. Like I said, I'm going to present at the Chesapeake Bay Alliance local governments. I'll put in a good word for your DEP permits.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other board member comments?
You have to make the final motion.
Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
I'll
Eby's
move
going to make
to
that.
adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.
Second.
I think we're adjourned.